All right, so we're going to be talking about what employers want, or basically career readiness. And I'm Joseph Jutan. I'm a career advisor with the FIU Career and Talent Development Department, specifically the College of Engineering. So let's jump into this. Just our mission, vision, policy, all this stuff. I'll skip this slide. And some of the learning objectives for today, we're going to be discussing NACE career readiness competencies, and then we're going to talk about career readiness in terms of resume and your cover letter, your LinkedIn profile, interviewing skills, and networking. All right, so there are actually 8 career readiness competencies. FIU is part, and specifically our department is part of an association called NACE, National Association of Colleges and Employers. And basically it is an organization that focuses on transferable or soft skills, specifically for entry-level jobs and for internships. The whole point of an internship, as you guys may or may not know, is to gain experience. So looking at some of these skills can kind of help put that in perspective, and specifically also for the job side, entry level, not mid or upper level positions, but positions that start for fresh grads. So we're going to go through a couple of these competencies. Most of them are pretty straightforward. As you guys can see there, critical thinking, problem solving. So going into a role or thinking about your background, when have I had the chance to demonstrate exceptional problem solving, critical thinking is actually the #1 competency that engineering employers look for, especially in the private sector or industry. If you're someone who is, a demonstrated problem solver, because in industry it's all about dollars and cents, and if you can showcase yourself as a results-driven candidate, that's always going to be a standout competency for you. Or written communication. So when it comes to written, meaning at least when it comes to when you're applying for jobs, things like your resume, your cover letter, email communication, and then oral, meaning things like in an interview or a networking session. And we're going to talk about that in a minute, in a couple slides. Teamwork, collaboration, engineering in general is not a one-person or one-man show, or one-person show, sorry. And if you are, someone who can showcase yourself as a team player, and also someone who's able to take leadership role when necessary, that's always going to be a very attractive trait. Employers will readily take candidates who are maybe slightly less qualified, but have demonstrated a track record of working well with others, and someone who is like a 4.0 GPA, all this experience, but does not work well with others. So digital technology, using things, software specific to your industry and your major. So things like MathCAD, AutoCAD, SolidWorks, Microsoft Office, Word, Excel. So being knowledgeable of those types of software and being able to use them to get the job done well. Leadership, so that's like the counterpart to leadership, to teamwork. So being able to step up to that role when needed. Professionalism, work ethic, whatever you as a professional consider good work ethic or professionalism, and also whatever that employer defines as good work ethic or professionalism. The two should go hand in hand. Your view on those things should not be completely opposite to what the employer's view on them are. Career management. So this is everything that goes into career readiness. So, making sure you have that industry standard resume, the cover letter, having the interviewing skills, practicing that trait. Things like, the job search process. So just identifying your skills and your experiences and being able to articulate that to an employer in an application package or in an interview or even in a networking event. And global intercultural fluency is working well with others from different backgrounds, races, ethnicities, just because we live in such an interconnected world today. And the competencies gained from this workshop today is, of course, I mentioned career management. So identifying your skills and your experiences and how you could, leverage that to an employer. The oral written communication means things like the interviewing skills, which we're going to talk about, the networking events, the written part being the resume, the cover letter, and then of course, professionalism and work ethic, things like your brand, what you want employers to know about you professionally, your traits, things like that. So we're going to think about some of these 3 competencies as we're going to go through the workshop today. Also, I forgot to mention this, but those competencies or NACE competencies are what you call transferable skills. So if, let's say, for example, you are looking for an internship or you're looking for a full-time entry-level engineering job, but let's say your only experience is volunteer work, doing tutoring, or let's say you have a full-time job working retail, and you are able to leverage the skills that you've been able to use in that role or in that position. Let's say, for example, exceptional teamwork working in retail. If you're applying for an internship in the engineering space or you're applying for a full-time entry-level job, if you're able to tell or show that employer that, hey, even though that this skill is not a technical skill or it's not engineering specific, it is a transferable or soft skill, which is going to make, it's going to be effective or a good trait to have in any type of role. So that's the meaning of transferable versus soft skills. As you can see in that second bullet point, transferable skills can come from really anywhere. Your engineering projects, your volunteer work, work experience, hobbies, personal projects, sports, anything under the sun, to be honest. Here are some more examples of transferable skills. I did mention the teamwork, as you can see there. A lot of these are also the NACE career readiness competencies, things like initiative, motivation, research, problem solving, time management. So a good list here of different examples of transferable skills. So specifically for engineering employers, which is everything I'm going to be discussing in today's workshop, that's what they really look for when it comes to entry-level jobs and for internships. Because if you're looking for an entry-level job, again, you don't have engineering experience. Employers are looking for, people to fill these entry-level roles, and the most that they can expect from traditional college-age students are at most an internship, one or more internships or projects. So you don't need to have a direct experience working in an engineering full-time role in order to be desirable for employers. So that's definitely something that you guys should take into account when thinking about transferable skills and what employers are looking for. And then also for internships, a lot of the times what you'll see is when you look at the internship postings, you'll see employers list soft skills or transferable skills. Because again, the whole point of an internship is to learn or to gain experience. So it would be counterintuitive for an employer to be looking for a whole skill set for an internship. And the fact that soft skills are transferable, that's what you're going to see listed specifically for internships in the internship posting. Right there, they have it listed: team player, problem solver, initiative, leader, excellent communication skills. So that's one thing you can leverage as a student who may or may not have direct engineering experience to be able to stand out. Just make sure that you have those soft skills effectively detailed on your resume in something like a summary of qualifications, but make sure that when you have those skills, those soft skills or transferable skills listed, it's supported in the bullet points. So you shouldn't have like some kind of wording saying exceptional team player with over 2 years of experience in engineering org ABC in leadership position 1, 5, 6, 7. It should be listed in the bullet point. So worked in a team of 4 to accomplish ABC, which resulted in 5, 6, 7. So just proof. So because anyone could list that under a skills or summary qualification section. So to make sure when it's demonstrated there, also in the cover letter is also a great way to expand in paragraph style compared to what is on your resume. We're going to talk about this some more, but is ideally you want to, the picture perfect scenario for you to sell those skills to an employer would be in an interview or in a networking event. So a couple more bullet points here. I mentioned that, of course, your resume, your cover letter, make sure that you do some soul searching or brainstorming to think about your brand and the types of skills that you have, those soft skills, just so that if you are ever in a situation where you have an interview or you have a networking event where you're going to have to mingle with an employer, that you're not for the first time trying to come up with the types of skills that may be transferable to a possible opportunity. Again, most of these things are usually when your job or internship search and they're on the posting. Think about where you've developed those skills in the past. That could come in a variety of different forms. It could be projects, volunteer work, work experience, internship experience, leadership positions, really anything, research experience. The list is just endless. And then that last bullet point there, an employer sees a match between what they want and what you have to offer. So just making that connection for them as easily as possible, especially in your application package or in your networking event, in an elevator pitch, for an example, is really going to help you stand out, because the more effort you put into highlighting those transferable or soft skills, the more successful you're going to be, whether it's for that full-time entry-level job or even for the internship. And I know I've mentioned that a couple times. I don't want you guys to get the wrong idea that transferable or soft skills are not important for mid to upper level positions. They 100% still are, but they're going to be asking for a lot more of the technical or relevant work experience compared to them exclusively asking just for soft skills for an internship or entry-level job. So we're going to talk about the resume and the cover letter a bit more. This is just like the overall, like the intro slide. But you really want to embed, like I mentioned, those skills into the bullet point. So as you can see on the right, that's what we call an industry standard resume. That's what employers go for, or what they prefer in general. So don't make the mistake of using Word templates or templates you find online. This resume you see on the screen is from scratch in Word. The only thing that's really tweaked is things like whether something is bold or underlined or in italics. So using something similar to this is going to put you in a good spot. Please don't stay away from using resumes using pictures or fancy colors or templates. Like it shouldn't be about the design or the picture. It should be about the content, meaning the bullet points. And as you can see, these bullet points and these different experiences, they're very detailed. And that's something that engineering employers prefer. You don't want to have short, vague bullet points. You want to have longer, detailed bullet points. So if you had a choice between short or long, I would definitely recommend the longer bullet points, because when you have longer bullet points, it gives you the opportunity to embed these soft skills you see on the left into the wording. So ability to work in a team, I've given that example. So if I read something, worked in ABC team to develop 1, 2, 3, they're looking for leadership, bullet point somewhere there in the project director role, supervised personnel, which included student recruiter, counselor, and tutors. That is a supporting claim that you have that skill. So the main takeaway from this is embed your software transferable skills into your experience sections or into a summary of qualifications, like you can see at the top. Also, make sure that you use industry buzzwords or keywords from the internship posting or the job posting. So of course, you're going to have a master resume, but you really should have tailored resumes for every position that you apply for. So when you look at, company A and company B, they're going to have different wording on their job description. They're going to have different requirements. You're not going to overhaul your resume like 100% overhaul. It's just a slight tweak of the same words that they use, because whatever the employer gives you in terms of a description, some give you very lengthy job or internship descriptions and some give you very short and vague ones. My advice is just take whatever they give you and work with it. You want to use those keywords. So things like manage, as you can see there in the example, product update, these are all from the description. And the main reason why you should use keywords is because when you apply online, most of the time it goes through software, which is basically what you call an applicant tracking system, which tries to match the keywords in the job or internship description with the words on your resume or your cover letter. Not all employers use them, but a good majority of them do. So you really want to be in a situation where you have all those keywords, and whatever criteria or thing that the employer puts into the software, you want to be in the pile or the bucket that gets pushed through to the employer, and not the one where you get the generic email saying thank you for applying, but we're considering other applicants, even though you were clearly qualified, but you didn't meet the word match requirement for the resume or the application to be pushed to the recruiter. So just kind of take that into account. So easy to read document. I usually recommend a 1-page resume for most engineering students. If you're making good use of the page in terms of the margins, the font size, the font type, and the spacing, you should, for most students, I would say 3/4 students or 75%, it should be enough for 1 page. But if you're someone who has a lot of experience, let's say you've had 2 internships, you have a lot of projects, you have varied work or volunteer experiences, leadership experiences, awards, certifications, whatever, you could have a 1.5 pages or 2 pages. The only time I would say try to keep it to a page is if you have a full-on effective 1-page resume, making good use of the white space and also the horizontal space, but the second page is like 2 or 3 lines. You could probably reword a couple things to kind of push it back to a page. But generally, a 1.5 pages is acceptable. So make sure, again, you're using the keywords, the keywords on the job or internship description. Make sure you're using the general resume for like a networking event, but you want to have a targeted or industry-specific resume for each application that you send through. Don't use those templates. I usually like to recommend in terms of font type, like you can see there, Arial, Calibri, Garamond. My personal preference is Times New Roman. That's what my resume is in. But it's up to you. I would just say don't use something ridiculous like Comic Sans or Century Gothic or like those cursive type fonts. Keep it very, simple and easy to read. And of course, that last one, number 10, just be honest. Don't lie for any of your experiences, because it usually never works out in your favor. Also, next we're going to talk about the cover letter. Not every employer requires a cover letter with the application, but I really recommend that you include it regardless, because it could be a deciding factor on whether you get the call for the interview or not. So it's always good to include it. I know a lot of people get very intimidated by a cover letter and they're not sure how it should sound, how long it should be. But I would say short and straight to the point is what I usually recommend. It's never 2 pages, it's always 1 page. Try and stay away from the fluff or all the extra words. I know a lot of students do that for essays to kind of meet the word count. But for the cover letter, keep it straight to the point, because there obviously recruiters are looking at a lot of different applications and you really want to get your message across as quickly and effectively as possible. Address it to the person if you can. I know on some of the postings you will be able to see who the recruiter is. If you do your research and you can't find out who, you could just do their recruitment team, their hiring manager. So just don't do to whom it may concern. That's overused and overdone. But definitely preferable the name of the person. The cover letter is also tailored to the position that you're applying for, because a lot of the times you mention in the cover letter the job ID number, the position name. So you want to make sure you have a general purpose cover letter and you tweak it for each employer that you use it for. The main takeaway though is, if let's say you are pitching your transferable skills such as problem solving and team player abilities in an application for employer A, but employer B is looking more so for, let's say, someone with attention to detail and follow through, you're going to have to switch the examples that you use in your cover letter for that employer. But if you're applying for company A, company B, and they're looking for the exact same skills, the most you would have to change is, of course, the company name, job ID number, a couple of things here or there. But it's also a tweakable document, just like how your resume should be. You want to do as much research as you can. That's the best way for you to know what to say in the cover letter. So looking up the company's mission, vision, if they were in the news for something recently. Obviously, the job or internship description is a master document to help connect those skills with what they're looking for. And then the catch your attention bullet point there, that essentially means you're not having a whole essay. So it's like, you really want to come off strong and as less words as possible. How do you match employers' needs? Of course, you're going to be, again, identifying the skills you're looking for, thinking about the types of skills and experiences that you've had that meet that need, and then just making it very clear by spelling that out for them, just expanding more than what may already be on your resume in paragraph style. Again, I mentioned it's never usually more than a page, always one page really. And just make sure you proofread it or have someone read it over for grammatical errors or typos. And always remember to save copies of your tailored resumes and tailored cover letters, and also make sure when you're applying for a job or an internship, you save the description, because a lot of the times once you've applied and the deadline passes, it gets removed or deleted from the website and you can't find it. And you don't want to be in a situation where you have to reach out to an employer for them to send you the expired posting. So make sure you take a screenshot, print, whatever works best for you.
Yeah, one question.
Yeah.
For proofreading, one thing that I've noticed has really helped me in particular is that I take the text and I make it text to speech, so that it actually hears it, I hear it out loud. And so once I hear it out loud, I can catch on some mistakes I may have not noticed, since you're writing it is different than how you say things sometimes. So it really helps with proofreading the cover letter.
Yeah, that's a great point, Alejandro. So yeah, if you do the text to speech, you kind of hear it back. That's good. Of course, you always have it proofread by someone else, or I know Grammarly is very, a lot of people use it. I've never used it personally, but apparently it's very good for like rewording sentences so they're more, effective, or the message is more impactful. But just an option there. I know Grammarly, you have to pay for it, but I know FIU has a writing center with, people who have a background in like English or, those types of things. So you could always get that checked there as well. Career services or career talent development, we're here to more so not to critique the grammar or the spelling, but to evaluate the impact of the skills you're trying to sell in the cover letter. So there's that. That's our example there on the screen. That's everything. That's essentially what it should look like overall. And the opening paragraph, the body paragraph, the closing paragraph. Opening, you're just kind of mentioning the job, the specific position, the company, the job ID number. You're maybe just emphasizing your skills briefly. But the body paragraph, which could be 1 or 2 paragraphs, that's where you're giving specific examples from your background as to why you would be qualified or a good person for the role. And then of course, the closing paragraph is very standard, thanking them for their time, phone number, email, I could be reached at this time or at this number, but that's pretty much what that looks like. Right, so we're also going to talk about LinkedIn. Just because LinkedIn has really blown up recently with COVID, it was really good before. People actively use LinkedIn. It was never like a dead app or a platform, but ever since we went remote, it's really taken off. A lot of employers and recruiters are actively recruiting on LinkedIn. So when it comes to LinkedIn, you really want to think about your brand. What's going to set you apart from other candidates? And it's really about who you are, how you are great, and why you should be sought out. So all about your reputation and thinking about like the added value that you bring. Because when you start actively searching, it's the same for other students or other job seekers or internship search seekers. And when you have that many people looking for an opportunity, you could essentially, most candidates turn into just a number, and you wouldn't want to be a number in a pool of applicants. So when it comes to your resume, your cover letter, the interview, let's say you attend a networking session, or even on your LinkedIn, you want to kind of think about who you are in terms of your skill sets, thinking about the career readiness competencies. Are you someone who has demonstrated exceptional teamwork ability or problem solving or leadership skills? Are the types of roles that you are applying for, are they looking for that skill set? And how can you make it very apparent or obvious to a recruiter across different platforms or across different mediums or media that you are, or you're someone who has that skill set? And those experiences really could come in the form of anything. So when you're brainstorming or thinking about your past employment, your past internships, your involvements, your leadership roles, your e-board positions, your research experiences, your projects, your senior design competitions, conferences that you've attended. Those really all play into your professional brand, and it makes it much easier for you to effectively showcase that across, again, LinkedIn, Handshake, Indeed, or your resume, your cover letter. So I just have some examples here on the screen about like Dunkin' versus Starbucks. Like as society in general, which one is considered like quote unquote the better or more affluent brand? I won't say which one. You guys probably think what Starbucks and how Dunkin' markets their coffee or their brand. Same thing like with Trader Joe's or Whole Foods, Nike. It just kind of goes on. Apple, Microsoft, Apple or Android, Google, whatever. So thinking about some of those things specific to you is gonna be good for you to think about, because it's everything I'm saying right now is just a general purpose overview of branding, because it's always going to be different for each student or each person or job candidates. So what is LinkedIn? It's basically social networking, but for professionals, like for, in terms of like jobs or business associates, colleagues, coworkers, the whole business side or industry side of it. Over 400 million members. I think it's even more now ever since COVID. And of course, it is a #1 way that you guys can promote your brand, especially online. I think there are other platforms, like I think it's called Portfolio, or there are a couple other ones, but LinkedIn, I would say, is my #1 recommendation in addition to Handshake. So of course, you really want to start with the fundamentals when it comes to LinkedIn. As you can see here on the screen, it's just a great way for you to connect with faculty members, recruiters, different employers. Of course, we're kind of on the same message about your brand. If you have your profile on LinkedIn, you also have a summary of qualifications or an About Me section, and that's the perfect way to really start identifying or showcasing your brand. So just like how you would have a summary of qualifications on a resume, it's the equivalent on the About You section on LinkedIn. You could also find, I'm not sure if you guys know, but internships and full-time jobs, you could find those on LinkedIn. They have a very robust platform recently for you guys to find things. Of course, Handshake is my #1 recommendation, but LinkedIn is also a wonderful way to find different types of opportunities. When you are in that job or internship search mode or phase, LinkedIn is a great way for you to research, in addition to going on their website or something like Wikipedia, which is not always accurate, but going on their actual website or their page on LinkedIn, is a great way to kind of start off that research if you're preparing for an interview or thinking about applying for a position. And of course, it's a digital version of your resume. So a lot of the times I get the question, should my resume be completely different from my LinkedIn profile or my Handshake profile? And in all honesty, it could be mirrored. So you could just copy paste everything that is on your LinkedIn into your Handshake profile and also onto your LinkedIn profile. But the one thing I will say is, because you're not limited by page length when it comes to something like a resume, you could have even more things on LinkedIn. All right, so networking. This is one of my favorite topics. I'm not sure if you guys know, but when it comes to the whole job internship search process, you might be thinking of all of these thousands of positions posted. That's where they all are, exclusively on job boards. And that's not necessarily true. A lot of roles are filled through personal contacts or through networking. So to give you 2 examples, a candidate who just applies on the website and hopes or fingers crossed for a callback for an interview is going to be at a disadvantage compared to person B or candidate B, who applies on the website, but then they're very strategic in terms of the networking, because they've, let's say, looked up that company ABC that they applied for with is going to be at the FIU career fair, or they're going to be at the SHEP conference, or they're going to be doing a FIU info session. And that candidate makes an effort to attend those events, to have that one-on-one with the employer, just to kind of get their name, their face, and their brand out there, and also to key them in, or key that employer in, that they're currently looking for an opportunity. They saw that company A posted this position. Can they tell me some more? Can they tell us some more about the position or the responsibilities? And the key thing is letting them know that you are super interested and that you applied. So someone like that is going to be at an advantage, because let's say, for example, you have an amazing one-on-one or networking opportunity and you've applied for something, the employer is going to be more keen to pick up or look at that application compared to candidate A who applied, let's say, even if they were qualified, but they didn't take the effort to network with that employer or with that recruiter. And then I don't want you guys to feel like it has to be a networking event. It has to be a LinkedIn event. It has to be a conference. It really could be as simple as something like applying for the position and then sending a strategic invite or a message to the recruiter on LinkedIn. So it really has many different paths, but the main takeaway is not just leaving it at the application. A couple things here in terms of like realities of networking. People are more keen to pay more attention to you or your application if they are able to have some kind of interaction with you, whether virtually or in person. Word of mouth or referrals does really work. So if, for example, if you had a reference, or you know someone who like a FIU alum who's working at that company, and they could put a good word in for you with their hiring manager or with the recruiter, that's always going to be an advantage. Number 3, being good at your job is not enough. Again, a lot of times people get into roles that they're not qualified for fully, but because they networked strategically and they may have been referred, that's always going to be something to consider. Well-connected people are always in the know. And then, of course, networks are a valuable source of support. And you can see with that statistic I mentioned there, 80% of jobs are never posted. So the majority or the bulk of opportunities are word of mouth or obtained through networking. A couple tips on dressing for success. I know no one's really going to like in-person things anymore, or for a while. But even if, let's say, you have an interview or you have a networking event, any type of face-to-face or virtual face-to-face with an employer, you should still put the full attire on. And the main takeaway from this is it really plays into your mindset, because if you're only halfway there in terms of the waist up, you're only halfway there either to sell your skills to an employer or to have a effective networking session. So I usually recommend to dress up for everything. I won't go through this whole thing because it's very subjective, but the takeaway from dressing for success is to keep it conservative. If you have to question, is this a good look? It probably may not be. So just play it very safe, because the last thing you want to be thinking about in an interview or in a networking event is, I should have worn a jacket, I should have worn a different pair of shoes, I should have worn a tie. So that's the last thing you should be thinking about during while trying to sell your skills. Before we move into elevator pitch, I also want you guys to remember, when it comes to LinkedIn, it really has an amazing alumni tool. So that plays into the networking aspect. So if you go on LinkedIn and you just type in LinkedIn alumni, you could see recruiters who went to FIU but are now working at ABC company. And then let's say you apply for something and you look up, or for whatever reason you find out that the recruiter that is recruiting for that position is the same major as you and also went to FIU. That's one thing that you have in common there. So that's immediate access to the FIU alum network. So it would be a great talking point, let's say, in an interview and also in that one-on-one with them. So kind of keep that in mind, LinkedIn alumni. And then now we're going to discuss the elevator pitch. A lot of the time, students get very intimidated by the pitch, and it's a very simple conversation. It's almost like when you have an interview and you get asked a 110% asked question, first question, tell me about yourself. That's essentially what an elevator pitch is. It's never something that you rehearse. It's something that you practice, and it should always sound very different every time you give it. So it could be the same elements that you discuss in every time you give your pitch, but it's always going to sound slightly different because it's not something that you have rehearsed word for word in your head. And a couple key takeaways that you could think about to craft an effective pitch is the framework past, present, future. Past could be, past internships, past projects. Current, or could be the fact that you graduate in a couple months, or the fact that you are actively looking for an internship or a full-time job, the fact that you've applied for something. Future could take into account your short-term goals, your long-term goals. It's a very fluid speech, or not even speech, but conversation. And it should never be, I don't have on the screen there that last bullet point, 30 seconds to a max of 2 minutes. It's probably more so on the low end, 30 seconds to a minute, probably even less. And it's something where if you practice it, the employer might interrupt you to learn some more about that internship or learn more about which specific position you applied for. So you might not even get the chance to give the whole pitch for some employers. But my advice for you when it comes to the pitch is whatever direction the employer takes the discussion initially, just go with it. Never kind of say, no, let me finish my pitch. I've practiced it so many times. Just have it be a very fluid interaction. So a couple key components, as you guys can see in this list here. A good way to kind of start is the fact that you are an FIU student, your major is biomedical engineering, you graduate in the fall of 2021. Right now you're looking for an internship for the summer of 2021 that's going to help you grow or help you develop a unique skill set to be prepared for the full-time entry-level roles. Just some ideas there. That's off the top of my head to help you kind of put together a pitch. There's no cookie cutter way of what the pitch should sound like. It's always going to be different for every student, and the pitch is always going to sound different for every employer.
Yeah, another good one that I remember bringing up is an acronym called STAR. So whenever, for example, if you want to continue the discussion with an employer and they ask you, well, what have you done? Well, you can just pull up STAR, and then you can say your situation, your task, your action they took, and then your results. That way you can expand upon more about yourself.
Yeah. The STAR technique is a wonderful framework, not only for an elevator pitch, but for behavioral interview questions. So like, tell me about a time when you worked on a project and something went wrong. what steps should you take to solve the issue? The STAR technique is something that you would definitely use. So this is an example of an elevator pitch, as you can see, very simple. Think of this as a conversation. They mentioned that they are graduating from FIU in May 2017. They put their degree, professional experience in sales or looking for a job. Past summer, I gained lots of valuable whatever. So this is like a, again, like a tell me about yourself question in an interview. Let's not move it forward. There we go. So we're not going to try it, but it's fine. But this is just some information here, just like in the future, if anything, if you guys do end up practicing it with each other. But always have questions when it comes to networking events, or even after you give your pitch. Always try and ask open-ended questions, or not questions that have just one-word answers. That's always a good tip I give to students to keep the conversation flowing so it doesn't die. And then, of course, if it's kind of wrapping up, connect on LinkedIn, ask for information. If they have a business card, can they tell you some more about positions that might be in the pipeline? When are they looking to fill certain roles? So those are all great talking points, for when you're interacting with an employer. So after an interview, or even after a networking event, again, it's always good to send them a thank you email or send them a thank you message on LinkedIn. I would say if it's a networking event, LinkedIn, I would say is more preferable. If it's an interview, I would definitely send an email to your recruiter or to your panelists who were on your interview. So definitely, there's an example here. It shouldn't be very long. Again, like a cover letter, straight to the point. They don't have a whole, a ton of time to read a whole essay thanking you thanking them for the interaction. Straight to the point. And I would even say a good way for you to know what to say is, let's say it was an interview or if it was a networking event, if in your interaction with that employer, you got the feeling that they were impressed by that internship or by that research project, it could be your main point in your thank you letter or in your thank you message on LinkedIn. It was great that we had the chance to discuss ABC 1, 2, 3. So just a couple of tips there on the thank you email or thank you message on LinkedIn. We actually have a whole 1-hour presentation on interviewing skills, but 10 tips here for you for the career readiness means. But definitely the main takeaway or the best advice I have for students when it comes to interviewing is you really have to do a lot of research. So for that 1-hour interview, standard interview, or that 30-minute interview, you might put 10 times that in terms of hours in preparation for the interview. So looking up the company, making sure you kind of have that job or internship description and you've studied it back and front. That's the best way to know what they're looking for and how you're going to sell it to them in an interview. Make sure you find out from the employer what the interview is going to look like, whether it's going to be in person, over Zoom, over the phone. Make sure you practice. That's the best way to get good at interviewing. Some people are naturally good at interviewing and some aren't. And if you aren't good at interviewing, it's fine. The more you practice, the easier it gets and the more you learn from your past mistakes. So definitely practice with mock interviews that you could do with our office is one way to practice. If it's in person or even if it's over Zoom, make sure you have extra copies of your resume to reference and to give to them if they ask. I mentioned dressing professionally, whether it's in person or over Zoom, just so you're in the mindset. Just be polite to everyone that you are interacting with at that employer. So like the secretary, janitor, whoever is there, don't just let it be your panelists that you're professional with. Make sure you log on early or arrive early. Make sure you test out all of your technologies first. Make sure you have a professional background if you're a Zoom background, if your in-person place doesn't look good for an interview. Just kind of reviewing making sure that you have a talking point for everything that's on your resume in terms of your qualifications. Sometimes employers in the interview will ask, can you tell me some more about this project, or can you elaborate some more on this bullet point that you have for your senior design? It shouldn't be something where you're at a loss for words. You really should be the expert on the subject matter on your resume. Make sure you always have questions for them. I would say like 2 to 5 questions are great. Always ask deep, for lack of a better term, questions and not surface level questions. It really shows that you have a vested interest and you're super interested in the role. And of course, make sure you send that thank you email to your interviewer or interview panel. Just a couple more services that we provide with career and talent development. So of course we do like these types of workshops, one-on-one appointments, group appointments, a ton of different networking events. If you guys are interested, career fairs, internship fairs, Panther Shadows, we have a ton of stuff, and everything is all on Handshake. All right, that's mostly it for career readiness when it comes to the transferable skills or the competencies. But can I take any questions from you guys?